Let's actually zoom out because, as I said, there's so much else happening. And I want to come to Ambassador Katju. The day before Muttaqi was to come to India, you made 2 points on this program. You said that this engagement was long overdue and that you hoped that an embassy status would be announced for India in Afghanistan, in Kabul. That has happened. We've also seen this visit attract all kinds of debate. One, a controversy over women not being invited for the first press conference, fierce backlash, and then this is the press conference. He not just has to invite women go as they do, as we do in India, dressed in the way that we choose. None of the Afghan diktats can apply here. But his visit to Deoband, Ambassador Katju, has attracted even more debate. You've had people like Javed Akhtar, Nasiruddin Shah, some members of the opposition saying, what the hell is going on? Why is he being lionized? Why is India doing this? And so on. Now, we may know the reasons, but how do you look at the visit so far? And I want to bring up the images of his Deoband visit because in particular there, he's being received like a hero. It's a red carpet welcome. It's a sea of people. Can we please show those images? Ambassador Katju, go ahead.
Look, we all know that Deoband has had a fair degree of contact with clerics who come from what is now Khyber Pakhtunkhwa and Afghanistan. Deoband started in 1866, and this was till 1947. This free flow continued. Students from there came and studied in the Deoband seminary, and there was a Deobandi Tariqa or Deobandi brand of the faith. And they went back to the areas, and some of them set up these seminaries there, which followed Deoband's scholastic traditions. Now, after 1947, these contacts got interrupted, and meanwhile, and from Afghanistan, those students still came to Deoband, but the seminaries that got prominence, especially once the Afghan jihad began against the Soviets, were the seminaries that styled themselves Deobandi, but which were on the frontier areas in Pakistan, and one or two of them were in Karachi. Now, these seminaries' contacts with Deoband were, I think, limited. And meanwhile, they also started getting influenced by Islamism, which came from, say, among others, the Muslim Brotherhood. One interesting point that I may mention is that if you see the literature of relating to Afghanistan of the 1960s, there was a group of Afghans who went to the Al-Azhar University to study Islam, and some of them came back and taught at the Kabul University, and two persons who come to mind who became prominent leaders in the jihad. One was Ustad Sayyaf, and the other was President Rabbani himself. They were both scholars. So they brought a certain different tradition. One can call it a more activist Islamist tradition. And the difference is that they became involved in Islamic politics.
Yeah, but did you see this visit to Deoband as an example, as some have alleged, of lionizing him, of, there are many who have expressed great discomfort at this sort of the profile of this engagement?
No, I for one have a different take on it. I think it's still early days, so I really think we'll have to watch how what it shows. As far as lionizing is concerned, he comes from Afghanistan, I think the people in Deoband would be mindful of the fact that the Afghan Taliban took on the might of the United States and frankly inflicted a strategic defeat on them with Pakistan. It's a different matter, and
Hmm.
it's particularly ironical that Pakistan and the same people, the Afghan Taliban, at odds with another. But what
That's
I
right.
want to examine, and this is the point I'm trying to make. So, as far as lionizing is concerned, I think there was also an element of curiosity in seeing it and
Yeah.
these different factors. And I, for one, don't place much emphasis. Uh, if you permit me to say in Hindi, हिंदुस्तान में तो किसी भी मीटिंग में लाखों आदमी आ जाते हैं तो उसमें तो कोई ऐसी बड़ी बात नहीं.
नहीं, but
Uh,
ये interesting था because from FICCI Chambers of Commerce to Deoband, Muttaqi has been everywhere except to the Taj Mahal, which he was meant to go to, and then that
because
got
that got cancelled because he decided to hold this press conference on the 12th,
correct,
which I
correct.
think is very significant. Which is very significant because I'm sure he would have got approval from at least Mullah Hassan Akhund, the Prime Minister, and who in turn would have got through to the Supremo, Mullah
Yeah,
Hebatullah, and would have said, "Ki theek hai, if women want to come, let them come." But and he batted on the front foot, and I think he
yeah,
showed a certain skill. You may agree or disagree. Some people have said that he was lying. He was saying things that were not particularly not true about the status of women in Afghanistan, but that's a
yeah,
different issue. But he was willing to meet them, so it
yeah,
shows that if there's an upsurge of opinion, the Taliban too reacts, unlike what they did in the 1990s. But the point I want to make is this: that what I will be observing is to see if the Taliban leadership, the Kandhari leadership, which has had contact with Akora Khatak and these institutions, whether they now want a greater contact with Deoband. Because Deoband represents, in one sense, Deoband has different streams, but one
yeah,
of the principal streams is the more quietist tradition.
yeah.
And
I sorry,
so
I'm
that is
interrupting.
what I'll be interested in to see.
Before Chidanand adds to that, I want to play out Motaki's statement on his Deoband visit. But I also want to sort of talk a little bit about how, of course, there is messaging to Pakistan. There's a full-blown military skirmish taking place between Pakistan and Afghanistan as we speak. But there's also some messaging, Chidanand, for Donald Trump. Trump has been lately obsessed with the Bagram airbase, and India and Taliban and China and Russia, and by the way, Pakistan, are on the same side against this. The images you see on your screen in the meantime are images of the border battle that is unfolding once again between Pakistan and Afghanistan. But before we come to all of that, let's play out for you what Taliban FM Muttaqi said on his visit to Deoband and about his visit to India in general. Take a look.
मतलब ये है कि इतना देरीना ताल्लुक है और हजरत शेखुल हिंद साहब का जो अरमान थे वो इस्लामी निज़ाम थे जी कि काश वो जिंदा था ताकि वो अपने आंखों से देखा कि अभी अफगानिस्तान में इस्लामी निज़ाम है। वो किताबें जो यहाँ पे उलमा पढ़ते हैं तदरीस करते हैं अल्हम्दुलिल्लाह वो उधर अमली नाफिज हो चुका है। तो हम इस पर मेरे लिए बहुत खुशी का मकाम है कि अफगानिस्तान और मुसलमाना ने हिंदुस्तान और खुसूसन उलमाए देवबंद के साथ इतना पक्का और इतना देरेना और इतना गहरा ताल्लुक है। अल्लाह ताला इसमें और भी बरकत डाले।
So he's basically saying there that he's very happy about this deep relationship or engagement with the Muslims of Hindustan, the ulemas of Deoband, India in general, and so on. Chidanand, I mean, the point is some of this visit has got dwarfed by Trump's Gaza peace pact, but sooner or later, the world in the West is going to catch up with this and sort of have things to say about it. How is it playing out there, especially given Trump's kind of obsessive interest in the Bagram airbase?
Yeah, I mean, Barkha, I'm temperamentally allergic to all things clergic. So whether it's, Muslims or Hindus or Jews or Christians, messing around with, fundamentalists, it just
Yeah.
doesn't make sense to me. I can understand the principle, Delhi is using right now that
I
are
mean, this is clearly a security choice. It's not
right,
a
right.
ideological choice.
Yeah, but remember, we also preached about, you have snakes in your backyard, it will eventually bite you, right? That principle should apply evenly, right?
Hmm.
I'm old enough to remember that the Taliban were actually guests of the State Department in 1997, before even 9/11. And at that time, the argument was, we need deals with them to explore their mineral wealth, oil or something. They went to Houston to meet officials from UNOCAL. So at various times, both the U.S. itself has sort of engaged with the Taliban a long time ago. And now we seem to be doing that on the same principle. And I
And
can see
does it make you uncomfortable?
it does. And I can see the principle here. I'm ready to embrace the Afghan cricket team, okay, but not the Taliban. But I can see the principle here. And in fact, President Trump's interest in Bagram, the sense I'm getting and what I'm hearing, is also has to deal with accessing the mineral wealth in the region. Remember, the mineral wealth that the United States now wants to get out of Pakistan can't be done without having Afghanistan on board, because a lot of it is in the border areas. A lot of it is in Afghanistan itself. So the U.S. has its eye on mineral wealth, particularly to extract rare earths in that region. So I can see that, Bagram Air Base, a renewed interest in Bagram Air Base, also because of China. And Trump has been fairly transparent that Bagram, the air base is fairly close to Chinese nuclear assets. So I can understand that, there is geopolitical interest. Afghanistan is, of strategic importance to many countries, both vis-a-vis China and vis-a-vis Pakistan. But like I said, these are the same people. Have they reformed? No. And in 1997, I remember Margaret Albright, who was then the Secretary of State, actually changed after she heard about the Taliban, whipping women in the stadiums in Kabul. That's what turned the tide, when there were reports and photographs of women being, handed out whipping in stadiums. And my sense is, I don't know if you're convinced that they have had a change of heart just because they had a separate press conference for women journalists, but
No, I don't think anyone thinks that. I think it's just
yeah,
about whether you believe diplomacy can be ideological, basis shared values anymore, or it
right,
has to be each man or woman for themselves. And I think we have understood the hard way that it's probably the last.
right.
I don't
So
know. But Ambassador Katju will respond to your misgivings,
I
but you
think the
complete your point.
Taliban and
Yeah.
the current Afghan government has to be held to a high standard. That they need to know that they can't engage with the rest of the world, whether it's US or India, by practicing the same thing. I can understand, they have their way of life, which is in the opinion of many, very medieval. But at the same time, we just can't engage, on the same terms that they have been practicing for many years.
So I want a quick response from Ambassador Karju to this. The fact is that, ideologically, I think, as a woman in particular, it's very difficult to sort of legitimize this engagement. But if I think with my other hat on, which is a student of geopolitics, what are the options? Look what's happening with Pakistan. Pakistan being courted by both Trump and China. This is an important, big strategic move, and both of these feelings can coexist. You can feel uncomfortable, but I also feel uncomfortable with the Saudis when they didn't allow women to drive, or the Iranians when they send out their morality police to make sure that women are covered from head to toe. So I think Ambassador Kaju do respond to Chidanand that when he says that, look, we've taken the position that eventually snakes in your backyard will come to bite you. I know that diplomats and strategic thinkers have said that the Taliban directly poses no threat to India in the way that Pakistani terror groups do. But have we forgotten, for example, the Haqqani network? Have we forgotten that the Taliban isn't necessarily one united, cohesive Taliban? When Kabul fell, the ISI chief was the first person on the spot. Right now, they're at war, but there have been linkages as well. So do respond to Chidanand's misgivings expressed by people like Javed Akhtar, sections of the political opposition. And I think if you generally ask the lay woman on the street of India, should you engage, they'll all say no. because they'll be thinking from a different lens. Go ahead, sir. Ambassador.
Look, I entirely disapprove of any kind of treatment of women which gives them a lesser status than men. That is a given. I think it's part of our upbringing. It's also a part of our constitutional values.
Yeah.
But I'm mindful of the fact that somehow this great irateness against Islamic or Islamist conservatism and in Islamist bigotry against women, misogyny,
Yeah.
is far greater when it comes to the less affluent states or people who don't dress, Islamists who don't dress in natty suits, than it is with those who are affluent. I have never heard anyone say in Washington, those who rail against the Taliban, I have never heard anyone in India who rail against the Taliban say that Wahhabism and Salafism, as it is practiced in many parts of the Arab Peninsula, is abhorrent, and that these governments should be shunned and sent beyond the pale of humanity. I find that the Khashoggi incident is forgotten now. Even the Washington Post doesn't write about it anymore. Isn't that hypocrisy?
I see your point.
Why?
I don't think people are going to make a point about Dubai or Abu Dhabi or Riyadh or in the
Abu
old
Dhabi.
days.
No. Just hear me out. Abu Dhabi is the only state which has shown a remarkable change against Mohammed bin Zayed. I don't know how deep it is. I don't know how long it will sustain. I've served in Abu Dhabi. I was there between 1979 and 82. And if you had then asked me that, will there be a day when there'll be temples there, gurudwaras there, openly, like Mohammed bin Zayed has allowed, I would have said, I don't think that time will come in my lifetime. But it has. But has the same thing been in Saudi Arabia? Are women allowed to move? They've been allowed to drive, but are they allowed to move around freely without a mahram? So what are we talking about? Just because these guys dress in these clothes that seem strange and they don't wear natty suits, sorry to use that term again, they are pillared. But the Saudi diplomat, whose thinking is as conservative when it comes to women, he's not. Why? I think that is the question that all of us must ask ourselves. Is it linked to prosperity? I don't know. Second, of course, there's a security concern for us. This is not nurturing, we are not nurturing Taliban or stationing the Taliban in our backyard. There won't be any group of the Afghan Taliban here in India. I think the analogy of snakes in the backyard doesn't apply to us. We don't have any Salafi groups or Wahhabi groups or Deobandi groups who use terror, who use and leave alone the state having any connections with them. We've ruled out that option, even though the Pakistanis have persisted with this for at least 3.5 decades. So, if we are, and I'm the first one, Barkha, who argued that we must open up and talk with the Taliban. I did so in an article in February of 2017 in a national daily. And ever since then, I've been arguing the same thing. Why? Because I saw that the Afghan Republic was not holding, and that the Americans were getting tired, and that the Afghan Taliban would come. And I was also certain, one last point, I was also certain that, and I think I said it on your show too, that there will be I was worried about that interregnum of a couple of years at most, And after between, when the Taliban may be doing somewhat what Pakistan wants, but that after that they'll go their separate ways, and that's what you've seen. So
Yeah.
the thing here is that what does this actually mean? It means
Mhm.
that he's gone to Deoband. He says, yes, we have a theological connect, and we are very happy that we've been allowed that
Mm.
theological connect, and we'll continue with that theological connect. We'll have to monitor whether that theological connect continues and
Yeah.
whether that theological connect harms India. If it starts harming India, we'll stop it. And we should stop it.
I think this is the column you wrote with the new great game. India must engage with the Taliban and Kabul. Since then, you also
I've also written a couple of other pieces, but I've argued that we have to
okay.
we have to be in
Okay.
touch with them, like we've been in touch with anyone who's effectively
Okay,
ruled.
I think we've seen two very passionately argue different views. Chidanand, I want to move on to what's happening between Pakistan and Afghanistan at the border, but I'll allow you a quick response there. Chidanand?
With
Yeah.
ambassador that we should talk to Taliban. All I said was we need to hold them to a high standard. And in this instance, for instance, I'm glad we did not allow them to get away with addressing a male-only press conference and literally force them to have another one where women journalists. So that was my argument. And in the broader sense, I said I'm allergic to all things clergic. It's not just Taliban or Islam. I think fundamentalists in every religion should
Yeah.
be held to a high standards to